This video examines the Supreme Court case, Denusta versus Migrant Workers Manpower Agency, Incorporated, decided on January 31, 2024. The case concerns the topics of constructive dismissal and the leniency shown in complying with Rule 65 procedures. Melba Alcantara Denusta, an overseas Filipino worker deployed as a kitchen hand in the Cook Islands, faced significant grievances. The case centered on whether her Rule 65 petition for certiorari should be relaxed given the COVID-19 pandemic, and whether she was a victim of constructive dismissal. Denusta's contract, facilitated by the agency and its foreign principal, guaranteed a 2-year term with specific wage, housing, and food benefits. However, upon her arrival in May 2019, these contractual obligations were immediately breached. The employer's misconduct included slashing her working hours, which reduced her weekly pay, and refusing to provide contractually required accommodation. Furthermore, she faced severe verbal abuse and a physical threat with a knife from the employer's mother. The procedural journey of the case began with the labor arbiter ruling in favor of Denusta. The NLRC later reversed this, ruling the exit was voluntary. The Court of Appeals dismissed her petition for late filing, but the Supreme Court ultimately reversed these decisions. Generally, under Rule 65 of the Rules of Court, a petition for certiorari must be filed within a strict 60-day period. However, courts retain the inherent power to relax these procedural rules in exceptional circumstances, such as emergencies, to ensure substantial justice. In this instance, the Supreme Court ruled that the Court of Appeals erred in its rigid application of technical rules. It held that the pandemic's movement restrictions and lockdowns were valid obstacles to timely filing, warranting an extension to prevent a grave miscarriage of justice. Constructive dismissal occurs when an employer's actions make continued employment impossible or intolerable. The court applies a reasonable person's standard to determine if the employee was effectively forced to quit, especially when considering the vulnerability of overseas workers. The Supreme Court rejected the idea that Denusta left voluntarily. It affirmed that systematic wage underpayment, housing breaches, and the threat of physical harm constituted constructive dismissal, as no worker should have to endure such perilous conditions to keep their job. Under Section 10 of Republic Act 8042, local recruitment agencies and their foreign principals are jointly and solidarily liable for money claims resulting from contract breaches. Corporate officers also share this liability to ensure overseas workers can access financial recourse. Consequently, the Supreme Court granted Denusta full salaries for the unexpired term, salary differentials, a refund of placement fees with interest, as well as moral and exemplary damages and attorney's fees. In summary, this case highlights that procedural rules must yield to substantial justice during extraordinary emergencies, and that workplace intimidation against overseas workers is indeed grounds for actionable constructive dismissal. The images used in this video are sourced from the provided links for landscape photography and the official Wikimedia Commons archive for the image of the Supreme Court of the Philippines.